So we are going to switch gears now, and as we continue, we move from the creative part of our work to something a little bit more data-driven, but just as crucial, measuring the value tourism generates in our Arctic communities. We will be hearing from Michael Green, CEO of Social Progress Imperative, very soon. But before that, I will pass the word to my colleague Nina Forsell, who you heard from this morning, to explain the project's approach in this work and how and why we have chosen SPI as our project partner. So Nina, the stage is yours.
Thank you. And actually what I wanted mostly to talk about is the background and why we're doing this and why we see a need for it and so on. And then Michael is the expert on the solutions, how we go forward. But yes, we've seen a strong need to better be able to show what is the impact of tourism to our societies. How does it affect? What does it bring? Of course, there might be both positive and negative effects, but how do we contribute to the society as an industry? And we have some facts. They vary actually across our 3 countries as well, what kind of facts we have. And sometimes it varies within the country, what you can get, what kind of data you can get, what you can get continuously, what you get maybe on certain points in time. And we wanted to help somehow come with solutions, and therefore we put this bold target to build a tool that can be used to show the value of tourism for the local society. Maybe the first thing most of us think about is the economic measures, be it turnover, number of passengers, or spending, or taxes. Some of those we do get and have, but some of those we don't really have a complete picture. For example, how much does tourism really generate taxes, whether it's income taxes or VAT or property taxes or any other taxes? Nevertheless, to speak about the people who are employed in tourism when they pay taxes, or the subcontractors we use when they pay taxes and their employers. So those are really important or interesting numbers that would be great to have clear, continuous statistics to show. But it's not only about the economics, of course. I think it would be great to know, for example, what all services that are maybe built first and foremost for our guests, but that our locals value and use. We heard from the mayor of Kirkenes in the morning how he feels that his family gets to visit restaurants or use services here in Kirkenes that have been built for the guests arriving, but the locals can take part of that. I can say that in the village where I live, I would not have access from, let's say, 100 meters from my front door to a 300-kilometer network of cross-country ski tracks if there would not be a lot of guests coming to the destination. But as a local resident, now I have the privilege of skiing on those wonderful ski tracks as well, and many, many other things. Also, what I think would be interesting to know is that due to tourism, the jobs, the services, maybe the atmosphere, how many people move in to our destinations? How many people choose to live there, feel that that's a place where they want to live and spend their time and grow their family? And what that does to the local economy. Maybe it keeps places alive that would otherwise lose inhabitants, and now instead they can gain new inhabitants. Also, when it comes to the nature, if we do our business responsibly, which we definitely have to do, we can use the nature as an asset and still let it be there for future generations without harming it. It doesn't apply the same rule to all industries. There are some of those who kind of use the nature once and then it's used. But we have the possibility to use and still have it there for future guests and future locals to enjoy. Also, I think some of the values that would be interesting to kind of make clear and visible is it maybe so that we have a different atmosphere? We get to meet people from different places. Our children grow maybe into a more international atmosphere with the guests that come to the locations. Instead, if we would not have any of the people from other places and we would only see the same faces, however lovely they are, from day to day and week to week. So that's something that tourism brings to the society as well. And we can learn about different cultures. We know that there are different cultures and what some of them mean. And what could all this, and I mean, we could continue with the list on and on, but I think that's part of the task that we are still facing ahead of us. What we can use with that information, if we can make it clear what is the value of tourism. I think first of all, it's a question about social acceptance. If the society sees the value of tourism, it's more probable that they accept and even enjoy it, that we are there as an important part of the society. We might attract both inhabitants and companies, whether it's tourism businesses or other businesses, who see a good place to thrive there in the future. Maybe we can find more possibilities to cooperate with other sectors when we can clearly motivate what our sector is doing. Maybe we can motivate investments from the public side, whether it's about maintaining or building roads, railways, airports, hiking trails, or those ski trails, or which not. Or the more, so to say, general services, whether it's building housing so that it's easier for people to move in and live in a destination, building schools or daycare, or maintaining those that are there already, so that once again it's a nice place for people to settle, or making sure we have enough healthcare also for those who come and visit. Unfortunately, also they have accidents sometimes. Or whether it's about rescue services or any of the basic services that are needed for a safe and nice environment. Also, private investments could be motivated if they see clearly the value of tourism in this area. Wise choices could be, for example, about the planning of the cities or the areas, the zoning. Where do we place what when we see that what kind of businesses and what kind of actions are done, what is needed. And also I think especially DMOs, but many companies, you often need to motivate why it is important to focus on tourism development, whether it's marketing or development projects or some other development. So with clear facts, it's always easier to convince. Of course, we can also use data to identify those trouble topics. If there is something that needs to be changed, something that needs to be fixed, that can also be identified. So yes, a long list how information can be used if we have the right kind of information. Currently, we have some of it, but by far not enough. And as I said in the morning, we're not alone. It's pretty much the same struggle all over the globe. So we need see a strong need to develop something new. And we did not want to go like the easiest route on this. We wanted to challenge ourselves and find the right experts to try to do something in a new way. Maybe not just settle with those facts and statistics that we have from before. So we want to build a tool that will not measure the society as a whole, but specifically what tourism is doing for our societies. And that's even more difficult. It's one thing with measuring what is in an area, but then what is the cause of it? How does tourism influence the society? So really not an easy topic. And of course, this is not only for the project to use. The project's use is more in this development stage. We want to help to build this tool. But who could use the tool in the end? It would be anybody. It would be companies, DMOs, municipalities, state-level decision makers, county-level decision makers, whoever is developing tourism and working with it. So that's what we dream about, having that kind of a tool. So we figured that this is a difficult question. We don't have the answer ourselves. So we set out to find the right experts. And we did a procurement process with several experts, and we got several bids on that. But the one that we saw absolutely the strongest, that we chose to work with, was the social progress imperative. Michael and his crew, they have a new and innovative approach, not just settling for the easy solutions, but really eager to set into new ways of creating models, how to measure and show how societies are doing. They have done a great work, actually worldwide, I would say, on measuring societies. They work with a lot of data, and they are willing to accept the challenge of working with data and finding the right data for this purpose. They have actually just published the Social Progress Index for 170 countries, showing how those countries have progressed over 14 years. So that is something interesting you might want to look up. You'll find it on the internet. So, together we have now started the work, and we really want to make it possible to see what is the effect of tourism here. It's the first beta version, so we trust you all to be a part of that in the development process. We in the project team, we have given feedback already, but we want your feedback as well, and your insight and comments and everything today. And after that, both the input we get from you and the input we have given will be progressed forward by SPI. So even our comments have not been integrated into the beta version that Michael will show you today. So definitely, feel the weight a little bit on your shoulders. We're expecting something from you. But now, with this weight, you might want to loosen up a little bit as well. Let's get started on the topic. And now I would like to welcome to the stage Michael Green, who is the CEO of Social Progress Imperative, SPI. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you very much, Nina, and good afternoon, everyone. It is a great pleasure to be here in Kirkenes, to be here back in Norway. It was a particular pleasure this morning over breakfast to be eating some Norwegian brown cheese. I'm sure if I keep eating it, I'll figure out why people like it so much. And thank you so much, Dag, for the introduction to Kirkenes this morning. It was fantastic, and I got a chance early to have a little look around the town, which was fantastic. And but one question is, where's the sun gone? It seems to be a bit cloudy now. It's not as lovely as it was this morning. So hopefully the sun is going to be coming back for later today. Thank you to the organisers of this event and for hosting this project and this talk, and for fantastically arranging a presentation about data just after lunch when everyone's feeling sleepy. So we'll have to do something about this. So as Nina said, this will be about work for you, not just me talking about data. So just very quickly, just to introduce myself. As Nina said, I'm the CEO of Social Progress Imperative. We're a US non-profit organisation created about 15 years ago. Really, we came out of the global financial crisis of 2008. And what drives what we do is the idea that you manage what you measure. Or the other way you could put it is, what gets measured gets done. And it was clear that from the financial crisis of 2008 that we were measuring the wrong things, because all our economic dashboards had been saying everything was fine until suddenly it wasn't. So we as a group came together to say, well, what kind of dashboard do we need to be a better guide to help us make better decisions for our societies? And that's where we created this tool called the Social Progress Index, which was, rather than measuring the economic performance of a society, it was trying to measure the things that make a good life: education and health and a good quality environment and rights. All these things that we then measure using existing data. So it's not a survey. What we do is we take existing data and then we put it all together using some econometric magic that I don't understand, but I have clever young people who do, that then produces meaningful results, as Nina said, for 170 countries going back 14 years. So that's what we're doing, not to sort of replace, we're not saying that economic growth is a bad thing, we're saying, but we need a dashboard that tells us a bigger picture about the quality of life in our societies. Just very quickly, I just want to quickly show you a couple of the things we found. One is that, broadly, what we've put is social progress is on the vertical axis and GDP per capita is on the horizontal axis. And what this shows us is that income rises, social progress increases. So economic growth is not a bad thing. Yeah? This is definitely the case. Getting more income, especially if you're a poor country, is a good idea. So we're not anti-economic growth. But what you see is that around this trend, there's lots of noise around this trend line. And I think we've highlighted here how Denmark has got a much higher level of social progress than the United States, despite having a big difference, a similar GDP per capita. And indeed, the United States is a real exemplar for us of a country that over the last 15 years has shown strong economic growth, but virtually no improvement in social progress. So it's not just growing your economy isn't good enough. You've got to think about how your economy is delivering for the real things that matter to real people. I highlighted Denmark here. Denmark is obviously doing very well. It's not the highest performing country on the social progress. That is, in fact, Norway. Oh, come on. I mean, Norway. No. We're going to do that one again. The highest performing country on the social progress is, in fact, Norway. Thank you. That's much better. Now, it's Finland. Finland, you're second. Yes, very good. Now, Finland is also the happiest country in the world. So just to be clear, that we're not measuring happiness, we're measuring social progress. And one of the things we try and do with a data tool like this is help it to be actionable. Because it's not just about being interesting, it's about it being actionable. And I don't want to be critical, but one of the problems with happiness measures is what do you do about it? I mean, if you look at the media coverage around Finland being the happiest country in the world, the only old articles I've read have been about saunas. I mean, and saunas are great, and I'm sure it's part of Finland being happy. But is that really our recommendation for other countries? If you want to be as happy as Finland, Central African Republic needs more saunas. Yeah? So there can be a problem about actionability with happiness measures, whereas what we try and do is build a tool. So actually, Finland, if you want to beat Norway next year, you can see in our data how to do it. Sweden, you're very close, you're very high up, scores are tight. If you want to get to the top, look at our data, we'll tell you how to get better. So that's what a data tool like this can do. And that's a key part of what we do, is we build data tools for action, for decision making. Giving you an example of how we do that, we've done it for the European Commission. We've built a social progress index for the regions of the European Union. Once again, the Nordic regions do very well. Obviously, Norway, you're not in this calculation. But the Nordic regions do very well. I think bits of the Netherlands are trying to be Nordic. Estonia is on its way to becoming Nordic. And this is a tool that the European Commission is using to try and reorient EU cohesion policy, regional policy, away from just building roads and bridges to actually looking at the more human aspects of the stuff that matters to people. So it's a data tool that can help decision makers change what they're doing. And that's what we do around the world. That's our business. And one of the ways we've done it specifically in the tourism sector was this work we did with Costa Rica a few years ago. With the Costa Rican Tourism Ministry, we measured the social progress of different tourism destinations. And what that showed to them was that actually different kinds of tourism delivered in different ways for the population. And in particular, that some of the high-volume beach tourism may bring the numbers of tourists, it may bring the dollars, but it doesn't deliver for the community. Whereas other forms of tourism delivered much more for the communities. So if you're there, Costa Rica's now integrated that into their tourism strategy to think about the kind of tourism they want to develop. So I just mentioned this as prelude to sort of say why I think a tool like this, this project is about, has the potential to be so valuable. A data tool like this can highlight issues that aren't visible. It can be a way of helping to decide where there are different competing priorities. And it can be a way of building collaboration, a way of building collaboration between government and business or between different businesses. That's the opportunity of creating a tool like this to actually drive change. And ultimately, that is the test of the success of this project. It's not whether or not it looks nice, or it grabs some newspaper headlines, or whether you like it or not, in fact. It's whether or not it actually proves useful for driving positive change. That's the test that you need for this tool. So let's talk about the tool. Here is the summary of the terms of reference. You can read it just as well as I can. But as Nina said, it's about communicating how tourism is crucial for the whole society's well-being. Trying to capture that with a data tool, which also allows us to make comparisons across different regions and drive sort of conversations. So that's the terms of reference that we're responding to. And now we've got to talk about what kind of tool this is going to be. The tool that is currently the tool with no name. Now, I've got a very important piece of research I've got to do here. This says the tool with no name, and there's a picture of Clint Eastwood. Who knows why I've got a picture of Clint Eastwood and the tool with no name? Okay, this is good. Because I put these slides together, and my colleague, Frank, said, that makes no sense, Mike. I like the picture, it makes no sense. And I said, but Frank, everybody knows it's Clint Eastwood as the man with no name from the Morricone films, the spaghetti westerns, A Fistful of Dollars, blah, blah, blah. And he said, Michael, that may make sense to you, but you're just a boomer. And it seems that you have proven him absolutely right. So thank you very much. I will take this feedback that my references to films of the 1960s has fallen flat. So I will tell Frank that he's right. Okay, but it's the tool with no name. Now, that we're not necessarily looking for a name today, there's other work to be done. But what's it, this tool with no name? We've got to. It's your tool, and it's something that's got to empower you to achieve your goals, which is why this conversation is so important, and we want to engage you in this conversation. And the place I want to start is a bit where Nina was talking, but I want to hear from you about what are the challenges you're facing that a tool like this can help you address. I mean, Nina talked about the possibility of advocacy with government over planning or spending decisions, dealing with the population, winning public support. Is it about collaboration with other businesses? I just want to take a few minutes to hear from you. I don't know if we've got a microphone or whether people will just shout out. But I'd love to hear from you, the audience, what the issues you're facing that a data tool like this can help you address. Who's feeling bold? Excellent. Thank you very much. I think, do we need the microphones? Yes, I think for the recording we do. So, and please do introduce yourself as well. It's always good to know who we're.
Is it on? Yes, it is. My name is Susan. I'm operating on the border between Sweden and Finland, on a hotel. And we have a great cooperation between our countries, between Sweden and Finland, yes. But we don't have a common tool for statistic. Mm-hmm. Because we have different way of following them up and also different kind to put them together. In order to get our politicians to take the common decision and reach our goal in order to grow together.
So they're working on different sets of data on either side of the border?
Yeah, we don't have any common tool.
Okay.
We have different tools in Finland and then in Sweden. So we don't have the common ones to put the statistic together.
Okay. That's actually, thanks Susan, thank you very much for that. Because that's a question we had for this tool is how important is cross-country comparison? Yeah. And I think what I'm hearing from you, Susan, in your business, cross-country comparison really matters. Your local market is cross-border, so you need that. Okay, that's great. Thank you. I see another hand. So one over here.
Hi, I'm Mats Lindfors from Visit Lyngenfjord, north of Tromsø. Lyngenfjord is 5 municipalities, small municipalities which are struggling with all the things that small municipalities in the rural area are: lack of investments, lack of people. And to be able to survive, we should have a tool to actually to communicate to our politicians that there is an opportunity in the tourism industry, and to be able, and we need something to really show the value of our industry, which is currently is clearly under other industries, as in Norway, as sea and oil. And as here, this is being really important, because the public part, the municipalities are not the ones who are investing, but they are making certain first steps which could clear the road for those who will make the investments, meaning planning phases and that.
Oh, so you're really facing the issue that other industries are more attractive to public policy makers to want to support.
For sure, yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's really helpful. And that's around the county authorities or national government?
It's, I would say, both.
Both. Okay, that's interesting. Just while you're passing over, I think we had a case when we built the first EU Regional Social Progress Index. We got a complaint from the governor of one of the regions of Poland, because we told him that his region was the worst performing in Poland. Well, we went to see him and we had a nice conversation. And one of the things we pointed out was your country, your region has improved economically, but it's still lagging socially. And he said, actually, this is quite useful for me, because this actually helps me with my advocacy to Warsaw and to Brussels. Because at the moment they're saying you're doing well economically, you don't need our help. But this is actually data I can use to advocate. So the data can be used to advocate up the public policy chain. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Martin. I'm from my company Troms Accessible Tours. And I actually have two comments. One is Tromsø is now going through the process of being very popular. So there's a little bit of over-tourism, and we're starting to get backlash from the population. And I think the Visit Tromsø DMO is working on this, but to show the population the advantages of tourism, so they don't start doing what they did in Barcelona, that they were spraying with water guns to the tourists. And I think that is a challenge that Tromsø is now facing, but it's going to be faced by any other big city that starts growing suddenly. And the other one that is more particular to me, I have an accessible tourism company. So every time I try to talk to people, DMOs, in every level in government or in tourism, why to do accessible, not to do accessible, to become more accessible for people with disabilities or other access requirements. Many people don't see the advantage more than the obvious to be a better person, but they don't see the advantage for the society, that it would become more equal. The advantage for the population, where the place is more accessible, it helps the inhabitants there. And all the advantages of being more accessible, but also the need of being more accessible, because nowadays there's almost no tourism besides the customers I get to my company. So many of the other companies don't see the need, because they've never had a request from a wheelchair user to do a tour. So having this information, I think, would also help that.
There's two fascinating points. I mean, taking the second one first, I think there's a general issue, and it's a problem we have with our Global Social Progress Index tool, is that we don't want to measure whether people are disabled or not. We want to measure whether they're living in societies that has good provision for people living with a disability. And that data just doesn't exist globally. And it's a real issue, because if you think about the global demographics and aging population, more and more of us will live out a large part of our life with a fragility or a disability. And being able to integrate that into policy making and build societies that are good for those of us who live with disability or fragility is going to be a really, really kind of important issue. So I think that's a really important issue. But you want to come back on that?
Yeah. I've actually been struggling with getting statistics on people with disabilities. And there's a matter of, but that is private information, so we cannot do statistics on that. But if, as you said, if we don't measure it, we won't act on it.
Yeah.
So in Norway, I actually asked for the statistics, and the only statistic I managed to have is how many wheelchairs have been given away by the Social Security by now. That's the only statistic I managed to get. I don't know if people have visual disabilities or other stuff. And I know, for example, to give an example, economical one, Facebook, to do targeted meta ads, we used to be able to target by people with disabilities or people looking for disabled tourism, and they took that away because of privacy concerns. But then now those people have no way of reaching what they want because I cannot target them, for example.
I mean, I think it's a very big issue. This generally, I think, is very important. But thank you for that. Then I think there's also the first point you make raises an interesting issue about the tool. Again, I think this is something we're going to want to talk to the project team about, is how much you're looking for a tool to help you with that kind of risk management. Because if you've got the danger of over-tourism, is that then about adjusting your strategy so you don't go to over-tourism, so you manage numbers, or is it about mitigating risks? It could be housing risks, etc. How much are you looking for a dynamic tool to help you with that risk management to ensure you're maintaining public support? And that's sort of a good question to think about in this project. Thank you. Who else? I see someone over here.
There I am. No, but I also think that a tool like this, I'm Trond from Northern Norway Tourist Board, can help the politicians to make better decisions. I totally agree with Susanne that we need comparable figures between the countries. And also what we see now is that Norway, Sweden and Finland, they are, or we will probably be even closer to each other because of the security situation. All three countries in NATO, etc., etc., etc. But to make good decisions, we also need to show the politicians the, call it, correct situation and figures. So hopefully it can also help us with making better decisions, not only for the companies, but also the politicians.
Yeah. I mean, I should have confessed, I used to work in government. I'm a recovering bureaucrat. And that's what part of the problem in government. You've got limited resources, so many demands being placed on you. But one thing that data can do is help you to make those choices in a rational way in how you prioritize. It can make sure all issues are visible as well. And also that also then it helps for advocacy, and it also helps for public dialogue. Any other thoughts? I can see one here and one here. This lady first. We'll go you first and then the lady over here.
Øyvind, I'm also from Tromsø, and we are also talking a lot about sustainability and sustainable traveling, and we all are searching for these green certificates, but how do we measure that our effort is a contribution to a better climate, and how do we avoid being accused for greenwashing and all this?
Yes, that's one of those problems around if there's bad data or there's the data is gamed, it can create the wrong incentives. And thinking about how do you make sure it's really does mean something is very important. And a lady here.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm Synnøve from Alta. We are already facing problem with the right educated people, so we can't cover any positions, and we are just at the beginning. Okay, so it's getting the right quality workforce. Yeah, get the local people to understand the tourism is a business worth going into.
Okay, so there's a reputational issue about the business and whether young people or people want to go into that business. Okay, that's good, thank you. Anything about relationships with other businesses? Huh? Well, you're welcome to have a second go.
Yes, it's a little bit in the same topic that Martin was talking about, the over-tourism or the friction in the local society when we get a lot of travelers. But there should also be a possibility to measure against other businesses also. So you have mining companies coming here and take advantage of our natures. We have fishery, fish farms, a lot of other companies that are also living out of the nature. It could be interesting to see how the effect on like the earnings on the local societies are measured between those different branches.
Yeah, we actually do quite a lot with mining companies using tools to help them with their community engagement. And part of that, they say, is one, because they tend to have a bad reputation. People have high expectations of them. But also this thing about them managing their relationship with government and non-profits, etc. Because especially mining companies get relied on, can be over-relied on. So building some of those partnerships. One other comment on the partnership, on the over-tourism point. I mentioned to someone over lunch, is that we did some work in Iceland. And they said one of the impacts they'd had with the growth in tourism was an influx of migrant labour that started to become permanent migrant labour that then presented some challenges. And one that was actually quite interesting was they said one challenge they had was Polish migrant workers who had settled in Iceland not wanting to send their children to kindergarten. So the Polish families thought it was their job to raise their children. And the Icelandic government was saying, you've got to send your child to kindergarten. And there was a real tension there that they hadn't anticipated. So I think there are changes that come that have to be planned for and anticipated. All right, let me give you a chance for any final thoughts. Yes, thank you very much.
Sophie from Explore the North. We see a challenge in the transportation within the whole region. And can this tool be helpful to follow up how the matters of traveling are in different communication ways?
So this is around infrastructure and...
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. And I presume kind of telecommunications, or that's probably pretty good everywhere, but general in broad infrastructure as well.
How the travellers are really going, no matter if it's train or on the road or any other matter of transportation.
Yeah, we did some work in San Jose, California. So that's the richest city in the United States that sits next to Silicon Valley. And one of the questions they had was, why do people from our city not get good jobs in Silicon Valley? And their assumption was it was all about education. And what we discovered was actually it was things like public transportation and childcare. If people didn't have access to transportation or childcare, they couldn't participate in the economy. So I think thinking about those wider structural factors like transportation is really important. Anyone? You're very welcome. Okay, let me show you the beta tool now. Now, it's a beta tool. This is for testing. This is for the conversation. This is not the final version. So with all those caveats, it is the tool with no name, beta version, Clint Eastwood, the man with no name. It makes sense, honestly, anyway. Right, so in terms of design of the framework, we were thinking about what is a holistic measure of the issues facing a place with the tourism sector. And we've categorized that around well-being, economy, infrastructure and services, resilience, and governance and strategy. And a key piece of feedback we've already had from the project team that we are working on is, I think, a feeling there was needing for a sixth pillar around the environment and climate change. I think there was a strong feeling that should be drawn out as a separate pillar. Okay? So that's the basic structure of the index we were building, but probably with an environment and climate change pillar as well, unless you tell me that's a terrible idea. Okay? And we worked on this very much because it mapped against the SDGs. I think the SDGs do provide a consensus about the kind of societies we try to build. So being able to bridge between the SDGs and this framework, we think is something that's quite valuable to do. Okay? And then what we do is we have to go and find indicators to measure each of these 5 issues. And these are the candidate indicators that we've developed for this framework. So like I say, these are our first cut of data. And as Nina said, we can wish as much as we like that data existed, but if the data doesn't exist, I have a wonderful team, but we're not magicians. We can't make data exist that doesn't exist already. Now, we can be advocates for better data, but we can only work with what we've got. But what we can do, what we're good at, is where there is dispersed data sets, choosing the best data and fitting it together in a good way. So from our initial research, this is a set of indicators that we've developed across these 5 pillars. Now, you don't need to look at those in detail, because that's going to be what you're going to be doing in groups later, is thinking a bit more about this. Just so you can see, in terms of where this comes from, this is where we've taken the data from so far. So it's some mixture of official statistics, very important source of official statistics, but also some other sort of private data sources, including like Facebook and Booking.com as well. What we're always looking for is data that we can compare across the 3 countries. So a single country data set doesn't help us. A one-off data set that doesn't get updated doesn't help us. We're really looking for data sets that are comparable across the countries, that go down to the municipal level, and will be updated over time. You see why it starts getting difficult. It's quite a lot of tests for a data set has to meet to be able to include in the index. So that's what we're trying to do. That's what we've got so far, and what we're looking for is other ideas on how we can improve this and get it to work better. So what we've done as part of this pilot project is about doing 3 municipalities in 3 counties in 3 countries. So I'm very sorry if we're not covering your municipality. Well, we only have resources in these pilots to do these 3 municipalities, which we selected with the project team. Right, so number 1, in Sweden, who's going to tell me how to pronounce that properly? Oh, Övertorneå. Excellent, excellent. There we go. Thank you very much. And then in Finland we have Gittila. Excellent. Thank you very much. And in Norway we have... Come on, someone help me out. There's lots of you from there. Excellent. Thank you very much. So we've got data for each of those municipalities, 1 in each country, the county in which they're based, and the national level with this data set. And then what we've also done is built some time series. So we've got 2 observations, one from 2019 to 2021, and then we've got another observation from 22 to 24. Because I think we found is that changes over time can be very revealing, and especially if you're thinking about that risk management part of this tool, being able to track changes over time is very important. And starting with some time series, building backwards some time series is a good way to help you track change over time. So that's what we've got, and let me show you very quickly what we've got in these from this first beta version, just to sort of whet your appetites. This is not a final version. Don't make judgments, but it's there to try and inspire you for the work that's to come. So we're going to start since we're in Norway. We're going to start in Tromsø, and so here we are. In this one, we've just put the 5 dimensions and the index score into this spiderweb diagram with the 2 observations of 2019 to 2021 and 22 to 2024. And that shows us that virtually nothing has changed. So comparing time series can be useful, but sometimes it doesn't tell you very much. Now, obviously, if you've got longer time series, you may see something else changes over time. But broadly for Tromsø, there's not much difference between the 2 time periods. As one of our advisors from MIT always says to me, it's still a finding. That is true, it is a finding. It's just not very interesting. It doesn't give us much insight. So another way of looking at these results is we can then compare Tromsø. And what we've chosen to do is compare it with Norway as a whole. So benchmarking your municipality against the country as a whole. And we see that Tromsø's score on these indicators in aggregate is pretty much the same as the country as a whole. It's a little bit lower on well-being, it's a little bit better on the economy, much better on infrastructure and services, about the same on resilience, and much worse on governance and strategy. So then we can see across those dimensions how those compare to give us a sense about strengths and weaknesses. And then what we can do is you can then pull that out and have a look at the aggregate indicators. And so we can then say, for example, on well-being, Tromsø has a slightly lower level of reported crime than Norway as a whole. We might say that also Tromsø has a lower unemployment rate than the country as a whole. It's got a much higher percentage of people in professional healthcare professionals than the rest of the country. And so that means that as well as the aggregate score, you can then pull it out and look at each of these individual indicators to say what is the difference, what the changes are. Now, I'm not asking you to react to this data or comment on it at this stage. What we're trying to illustrate is the way that once you've got the tool, you can benchmark the performance of the municipality, first of all, against itself over time. Secondly, you can benchmark it against its country benchmark. You could also benchmark it against the county. I just didn't do that, but you could do that as well. Or then you can benchmark, or you can look at the individual indicators and how they've changed over time, which then can give you the piece of actionability. If, we might say, if some of the indicators are worse than the country as a whole, that's an area that might need investment. Or if there's a change in one of these indicators, you might say this is something that needs public policy intervention, etc. So it's that way it gives you a whole story, but also the detail as well that you can unpack and use for actionability. What we haven't done in this, actually, Susan, to your point, is compared countries, because we actually thought how much useful is it going to be to compare between different countries. But maybe it is important. We've made the data set so it's similar as across the countries, so you can compare the two municipalities, but whether comparing municipalities or not is a question really for the team. One other thought, of course, it becomes much more useful if you build it out for every municipality. We just have it for 3 municipalities now, so comparing Tromsø to Kittilä, which may be different places, may not be very helpful. But if you've got 2 municipalities either side of a border, then that might make more sense. Susan, did you want to respond on this?
It's not to compare for our it's more to put them together in order to build up the common strategies.
Yeah.
Not to compare them. So I hope that you understand what I mean.
Yeah, but you need to put the 2 data sets together of different sides of the border, rather not necessarily comparing. But also comparison can also help with benchmarking, with learning. Why is this municipality doing so much better than this other one? Now, obviously, I've just shown you this for Tromsø for Norway. I'm going to very quickly just show you the other municipality, one municipality from each of the other countries, just to be fair, so you can see how it works. Off Torneo. So this is different. Here we see there's actually been quite a significant change in a number of areas over time. So sometimes a time series comparison actually can be quite useful, and we could ask, why has this improved in infrastructure? Why has it improved in resilience? Why has it declined in well-being? You get those insights, you can see what's the change been in our community over time. You can then use for advocacy or discussion with policymakers. And again, we can then compare that with Sweden as a whole. A bit better than Sweden as a whole. Yeah? So this municipality actually is better than the national average, but again a mixed pattern, with some areas like resilience much stronger than the national average, but on governance and strategy much weaker. In general, we seem to see these municipalities are weaker on governance and strategy. And again, we can then drill down and you can pick out some individual indicators that explain those patterns that could then be used to identify priorities for change, priorities for action, priorities for collaboration. Now that's going to require insights from your side on where the priority is. I just noticed this one here on the bottom, governance and strategy, wheelchair accessibility in cafes, restaurants, is actually better in Övertorneå than it is in Sweden as a whole. So you may see what are the differences. I also know a broad trend under resilience. We've got percentage of positive mentions in social media. And broadly, the 3 municipalities we've all looked at have all performed worse than the national average. Now, I know that's only a sample of 3 municipalities from this region, from this Arctic region, but I'm interested in one, you've got a digital task force. I'm interested in, one, is that measure telling us anything? Is it a good measure? And two, if so, why is that different? Why is that a measure in which this tourist region, municipalities, are underperforming? So that's Sweden. And then Kirkenes. Again, this is one where we see we haven't seen a lot of change over time. So the data is always the data. Sometimes it tells you something, sometimes it doesn't. And these are quite short time periods. Because remember, if we're talking about outcomes, social outcomes, environmental outcomes, these can take time, they take a period of change over time. And then we compare with Finland as a whole, and again, slightly better than the national average. And again, weak on governance and strategy, this time very strong on economy as a comparator. And again, we can then break that down for each of the individual indicators. Kirkenes wheelchair accessibility is worse than the national average. But again, on positive mentions in social media, worse than the national average. But other things like education, actually we talked about education, actually better than the national average on post-secondary education, worse than the national average on secondary or less education. So we just picked out some of the indicators here. All of them will be using the same indicators for the detailed data set. So this is, again, just a beta version, and we're just showing you a flavor of how the data can be pulled out to give insight. I want to do now is just set up, we'll have a break before we do this, but break before we set up what's going to be the job in the breakout sessions. Before I do, though, any comments or questions so far on the index? Go on. Oh, do we have a microphone? Oh, I think we might need one for the microphone, for the recording, so let's make sure, we want to make sure you're recorded for posterity.
Hello everybody, I'm Johanna from Swedish Lapland Visitors Board, and I think it's interesting from the Swedish point of view, because when we picked Övertorneå, we picked the municipality because there has been a strong development within the tourism industry for the last couple of years. And I think that was really interesting to see the numbers, because they had actually improved, and in many places quite a lot. And we know that at the same time, the tourism industry has bloomed quite a lot during those 2 years. So maybe we can lead into evidence that actually it's because of tourism. We don't know, but it's interesting for me to see, at least, because we had some thoughts that it might look like this, and it did. So for me, this is good news.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. Thank you, Johanna. And that's an important point, is that if, in terms of the index, you don't necessarily want to put every indicator that you care about into the index. Because if you were talking about growth of tourism, you want that index, you want that data point outside the index, so you can say there's been a growth in tourism and there's been an improvement in these variables. Yeah? So this is why the index doesn't have to be everything you care about. It's trying to say, what are these aspects of tourism and its contribution to our societies? That's what we're trying to measure. Then you can look at some of the variables about tourism industry performance and then link them to those outcomes. Okay? I'll take that one as a win. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions?
Do you have the same thing for Finland? This chart?
Yeah. Yes. So Kirkenes, not a lot of change. As I say, it's quite short time periods, so you don't necessarily see that change so quickly. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Right. So your assignment, once you've energized yourself with some coffee after the break, is what we've done is we've broken you into the groups for the 5 dimensions. These are all sorted out already, aren't they? Excellent. And then, so we're taking you, each of you going into a group where you look at one of the individual dimensions. And then what we want you to do is, for that dimension, is you look at, first of all, a definition, like, say, economy or well-being or resilience. Does this concept make sense? Is this the right definition of the concept for what we're trying to do? And then secondly, how well do the indicators we've got already manage that concept? Are the indicators measuring the concept well? And then thirdly, what can be done to improve it and make it useful? By changing how we think about the concept, changing the indicators. Now look, I'm not expecting you to go away and look up data sources and only come back to me if you can provide a reference to a data source. So please, any ideas you've got about data you'd like to see, please tell us. But if you've got data that you've got a source for, even better. So really, we're looking for ideas here. Your sense about how well the dimensions are defined, and then secondly, how we can measure them with the best possible data. So I think we've got about 40 minutes for the whole session. So we don't have that much time. So really try and distill it down to 3 or 4 takeaways for your group. You'll have sheets to write things up. We will take photos of the sheets. So any ideas you've got, please capture them. Real examples, real sort of practical examples. I think like some of the questions we've had already are really, really helpful. It makes it concrete. We've got a flip chart. And this feedback is going to be critical about how we move it forward. Because as I said, this is your tool. This is for you. So understanding what you need is critically important if we're going to get this tool to be as good as possible. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. But the question is, can it be good enough so it's useful to help you to achieve your goals? That's the test. Okay? Any questions before we break? Guys, happy? Scared? Depressed? More scared. Excellent. Alex here, any final instructions before we break?
It's about the break.
No?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we are ready for a break. Thank you, Michael, for all the instructions. And I think when you showed the map, you also gave away why I moved to Norway instead of saying where I was. But yes, just some instructions about the workshop. You have already the codes that you have on your, what did we call them again? Well, badges. Okay, the languages are failing me right now. So on your badges you have the colors. We're going to divide the groups exactly as we did earlier this morning. But this time actually we're going to be mixing up the colors a little bit. Don't stress about this. We're just going to have a little bit bigger rooms. And when you come back on the screen, you're going to get the color combinations so you know who you need to sit together with. So just enjoy the coffee for now. And we're going to be back here at 3:10. So we just say thank you to Michael for now.
See you later.